Why did heaven summon Moses and Elijah to stand beside Jesus? And why were their words cut from the record? There is a story whispered only in fragments, a vision so radiant and unsettling that scribes hesitated to record more than a few trembling lines. We were never meant to stand on this mountain. We were never meant to hear what was said here, in voices that have echoed through eternity, yet barely survive on ink-stained parchment. What was shown that night? And why did Jesus swear his closest friends to silence until after his own resurrection? Matthew tells it plainly. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. Matthew 17:2. But that single verse conceals more than it reveals. Why did his radiance erupt here and nowhere else? Why did Moses and Elijah appear beside him, two figures separated by centuries, one buried by God's own hand, the other swept alive into fiery chariots? Thank you for tuning in. Type in the comments a verse that's been on your mind. I'd love to hear from you. Now let's get into the video. The wind on that summit was cold, thin, sharp. Peter, James, and John trembled in the night air, their sandals grinding into loose stones as they struggled to breathe in the thin altitude. Below them, the Galilean valleys slept under Roman occupation. Above them, the sky burned with uncountable stars, their silence broken only by the sudden blaze of light erupting from Jesus' face. The disciples shielded their eyes, yet, through their fingers, they glimpsed two silhouettes forming beside him, one staff-bearing, rugged from wilderness exodus, the other cloaked in prophetic fire, eyes like storms. Moses, Elijah, returned from realms the living rarely touch. Why this mountain? Ancient rumours point to Mount Hermon, where watchers once descended in rebellion, their oath carved into stone and sealed in Enoch's scrolls. Could this have been deliberate? The Messiah reclaiming ground once lost to angels in revolt? Why show this vision to 3 fishermen and not to the 12? Why veil their testimony for years, as if the world was not ready to hear it? Even now, traces of their words feel cut from the record, buried in monastery vaults, surviving only in whispers of early church fathers and fragments smudged by centuries of trembling hands. We stand at the edge of that silence. What was said in that blaze between Jesus, Moses, and Elijah? What unrecorded counsel passed among them about his coming death, his exodus, his kingdom? And what does it mean for us, still waiting at the foot of the mountain, straining to hear what heaven tried to hide? To uncover the meaning, we must return to the mountain itself, to the climb into darkness and the moment when silence broke into light. The mountain rises against the night like a black wall, its ridges jagged against the stars. We are told so little of the climb, yet hints remain scattered, like fragments of broken pottery. 6 days after Peter's confession that Jesus is the Christ, 6 days after he first spoke of suffering and death, he leads 3 of his closest followers upward in silence: Peter, James, and John. Why only these 3? Deuteronomy required 3 witnesses to confirm a matter in the presence of God. Was this ascent a legal testimony sealed in heaven itself? The path beneath their sandals is rough and unmarked, stones slick with dew. Cold air burns their lungs as they climb higher, leaving the murmurs of the camp behind. Somewhere below, Rome's patrols march the highways, oblivious to what is unfolding above them. The world sleeps, unaware that history is pivoting in the dark. With each step, the night grows thinner, the stars sharper, as though they are ascending not only a mountain but a boundary between realms. Some say it was Mount Tabor, a solitary dome rising from Galilee's plain. Others whisper Mount Hermon, towering and snow-capped, feared in Jewish memory as the place where rebellious angels swore their oaths in the days of Enoch. Hermon's slopes were littered with pagan shrines, altars to forgotten gods, and carved stones marking ancient rebellions. To climb Hermon was to walk into contested ground, a cosmic battlefield. Could this be why Jesus chose it? To confront in blazing light the very powers that had once claimed this height as their own? The silence of the climb mirrors the silence of the Gospels. What prayers did Jesus whisper as he walked ahead of them? What storms churned within him, knowing the cross awaited him in Jerusalem? Did he think of his baptism when the heavens opened and the same voice declared him beloved? Did he wonder if his disciples could endure the truth he was about to unveil? We are left to imagine, piecing together hints from fragments left unrecorded, hints some claim were deliberately cut from early testimony to guard the mystery. Mountains have always been the stage of revelation. Sinai burned with fire when Moses ascended to receive the law. Carmel crackled with lightning when Elijah called down fire against the prophets of Baal. Now, on this unnamed height, the law and the prophets themselves are about to stand beside their fulfillment. Every step toward the summit carries centuries of expectation, promises whispered through generations, hopes buried under Roman boots. As they reach the crest, breathless and trembling, the air changes. The thin wind carries a charge, as though the mountain itself remembers. The disciples collapse to their knees, gasping, and in that fragile stillness something shifts. The darkness does not fade but burns away. A light erupts from within him, not cast by moon or fire, but radiating from his very being. His face blazes like the sun. His garments turn white beyond any earthly dye. The ground itself seems to tremble underfoot. In this moment, heaven touches earth, and the veil between realms is torn open for three witnesses whose eyes will never again see the world the same way. And then they appear. Two figures forming in the blaze, shapes solidifying in the radiance. One, rugged and weathered, staff in hand, the weight of wilderness and law etched into his very posture. Moses, who once begged to see God's glory and glimpsed only his back, now beholds the unveiled face. Beside him stands Elijah, fierce and unbowed, eyes like fire recalling Carmel's storms, the prophet who never tasted death and whose return was promised in Malachi's final breath. They speak with him, not in riddles, but in solemn counsel. What do they say? Luke hints at it. They speak of his exodus, his departure soon to be accomplished at Jerusalem. Are they preparing him for Gethsemane? Are they affirming that the road to glory runs through the valley of the cross? The Gospels are silent beyond this single word, leaving us to wonder if more was spoken, words too holy or too dangerous to write. Peter cannot bear the weight of it. Terrified yet exhilarated, he stammers about building 3 shelters, as if this moment could be frozen and kept. He does not understand that this is not a retreat into safety, but a revelation of destiny. The mountain is not meant to hold them. This glory is a glimpse, not a home. The voice that spoke at Sinai is about to speak again, and when it does, it will confirm not law or prophecy, but the one who stands between them. We are left on the edge of that moment, breath held, hearts racing. If Moses and Elijah stand here, if the law and the prophets converge in this blaze of light, then what is about to be said will shake not only the disciples, but the world itself. And as the radiance surges brighter, a cloud begins to descend, thick and luminous, swallowing the mountaintop in living fire. The voice is coming. Are we ready to hear it? Why did God preserve Moses for this moment? Centuries after his death, buried by God's own hand in a grave no man could find, the lawgiver stands alive again on a mountain he never walked in life. We are told almost nothing of how or why he appears, only that he is here beside Jesus in the radiance, silent yet known instantly to the trembling witnesses. What does it mean for the man who once begged to see God's glory and was permitted only a glimpse of his back to now stand face to face with glory itself? Moses' life was defined by mountains. He fled to Horeb in exile, barefoot before the burning bush. He ascended Sinai through thunder and fire, receiving words carved in stone by the hand of God. He descended to find a people worshipping golden idols, and shattered the tablets in holy fury. He wandered 40 years among the faithless, and died outside the promised land, his eyes straining toward what he could not enter. Deuteronomy tells us God himself buried him in a valley opposite Beth Peor, and no one knows his grave to this day. Why conceal his body? Why guard it from human hands? Jude hints at a cosmic battle over his corpse, Michael contending with the adversary for reasons unspoken. Did heaven shield Moses for this night, saving him for this meeting between law, prophets, and the one who fulfills them both? The radiance of Sinai once reflected from Moses' own face, a fading echo that frightened Israel so much he veiled himself. But here on this higher summit, the radiance does not reflect, it originates. Moses stands beside the source of the very light he once mirrored. What floods his heart as he beholds the true face of the one who spoke to him in fire and cloud? Does he recall trembling in the cleft of the rock, shielded by the hand of God? Does he remember pleading, "Show me your glory," not knowing that the fullness of that prayer would be answered long after his death? The disciples can scarcely comprehend the layers converging before them. To them, Moses is the lawgiver whose name is invoked in every synagogue reading, the figure whose commands shaped their lives since birth. They know the stories of his miracles, his plagues, his staff turned to serpent. Yet none of them have seen him until now, clothed not in desert dust, but in immortal brightness. Do they realize what they are witnessing? The law itself bowing to the one who fulfills it. The silence of the canonical record is deafening. We are told Moses and Elijah speak with Jesus of his exodus in Jerusalem, but nothing more. Was this word chosen deliberately, tying the liberation of Israel from Egypt to a greater deliverance through the cross? Does Moses speak of the first Passover and the blood on the doorposts, hinting at the blood about to be poured on a hill outside Jerusalem? Do they discuss covenant, the stone tablets once broken, the new covenant about to be written not on stone but on hearts? The Gospels do not say. Perhaps the early scribes feared what was said here, feared to record words that might expose mysteries too great for the unprepared. Perhaps fragments of this conversation linger in apocryphal scrolls now hidden in monastery vaults, their ink faded, but their meaning burning still for those who dare to search. For Moses, this meeting is more than reunion. It is vindication. He who was denied entry into Canaan now stands in the true promised land, gazing upon the Word made flesh. He who mediated the covenant of stone now beholds the covenant of blood. He who once interceded for Israel's rebellion now speaks with the one whose blood will cover every rebellion. How does he feel in this moment? Awe, surely, but also completion. The ache of centuries resolved in the blaze of Christ's face. And yet, even here, there is dread, for they speak of suffering, they speak of departure. The glory of the mountain is already shadowed by the agony of the cross. Below them, the world remains unaware. Roman banners still ripple in the valleys. Herod's palace still hums with intrigue. The temple priests still chant their psalms, oblivious to the council convened above their heads. Heaven's greatest meeting is unfolding in secret. A coronation cut from the record, a revelation buried under centuries of liturgy and softened sermons. Do we grasp the weight of this moment, or have we allowed it to be tamed into art and stained glass? If Moses himself bows to this figure of light, what does that demand of us? But this is not the end of the vision. For beside Moses stands another, a prophet of fire whose story did not end in death at all. His presence carries its own mystery, and his appearance on this mountain deepens the question of what is unfolding. Who is Elijah, and why must he return before the end? But Moses was not the only figure to appear. In the blaze beside him stands another, a prophet of fire whose story did not end in death, whose promised return has haunted Israel's hopes for centuries. Why was Elijah preserved alive when every other prophet tasted death? The mountain blaze reveals him beside Moses, his silhouette fierce and unbowed, eyes alight with storm and memory. Elijah the Tishbite, who once called down fire on Mount Carmel and shattered Baal's prophets before a trembling nation, now stands alive centuries beyond his last breath recorded in Scripture. He is the prophet who vanished in a whirlwind, taken by fiery chariot into the heavens, leaving his mantle to Elisha and a promise of return. Malachi's final verses whisper of him as herald of the day of the Lord, the one who would turn fathers to children and children to fathers, lest the earth be struck with utter destruction. That expectation burned in Israel's heart for centuries. And now, in this forbidden moment, he is here again. Elijah's story begins in drought and fire, a man forged in wilderness who spoke truth to kings and called famine upon the land to awaken a rebellious people. He was no gentle teacher, but a prophet of confrontation, standing alone on Carmel against hundreds of false priests. He prayed, and fire fell from heaven, consuming altar and sacrifice alike, a spectacle of divine judgment that sent Israel trembling to its knees. Yet even Elijah knew despair. Fleeing Jezebel's threats, he wandered into the wilderness, lay under a broom tree, and begged God to take his life. It was on Mount Horeb, in a cave cut from stone, that he encountered the whisper after the wind and fire. He knew both fury and silence, zeal and exhaustion. Why then was this prophet, unlike every other, spared the sleep of death? Why did God lift him bodily into heaven rather than lay him in dust? Some rabbis whispered that Elijah was preserved for future missions, dispatched as divine messenger in every age. Tradition paints him as eternal wanderer, appearing at circumcisions and Passover tables, a hidden witness at every covenant moment. Could this be why he stands now with Jesus, not as ghost or shade, but as living prophet bridging past and future, earth and heaven? The apocalyptic undertones thicken. Elijah's return was expected to precede Messiah's arrival. John the Baptist was hailed by some as his forerunner, yet here Elijah himself descends, joining Moses and Christ in council. What are they discussing in the radiance? Luke hints they speak of Jesus' exodus, his departure soon to be fulfilled in Jerusalem. Does Elijah warn him of what awaits in Gethsemane? Does he speak of fiery judgment to come, of cosmic reckoning long prophesied? Are they aligning heaven's timetable, sealing the path that leads from this mountain to the hill of crucifixion? The disciples witness this and tremble. To them, Elijah is legend, a name uttered in synagogue readings and whispered in longing prayers at every Passover. Now he stands alive before them, flame still in his eyes, a living confirmation that prophecy breathes. Can we grasp what this means? If Elijah's return is here, is the day of the Lord already at hand? Are these three fishermen seeing not only their master transfigured, but the very threshold of the end? And yet, the canonical record remains silent beyond fragments. No description of Elijah's words. No hint of the look exchanged between prophet and Messiah. Could it be that some truths were cut away deliberately, sealed in hidden writings now crumbling in monastery vaults? Did early believers fear the apocalyptic weight of this meeting, softening its tone for the sake of empire and survival? Even now we sense gaps in the narrative, whispers of greater meaning lost in translation and time. Elijah's presence beside Moses completes the pattern. Law and prophets, together in witness, converging on Christ. Yet, Elijah brings more than witness. He brings fire, heralding judgment and renewal. This is no gentle vision. The light on this mountain is not soft or ornamental. It is consuming, purifying, unveiling a kingdom that cannot coexist with compromise. Do we feel the weight of it? If Elijah walks again among the living, if his return is fulfilled here beside Christ, then prophecy is no longer future, but present. The kingdom is already pressing in. The veil between worlds is thinner than we dare believe, and as this realization trembles in the hearts of Peter, James, and John, a deeper radiance rises behind them. It is not only Moses and Elijah who bow in this blaze. Something greater is about to happen, something no prophet or lawgiver ever dared behold. The Son himself is about to be revealed. Even their fiery presence fades beside what comes next, For at the heart of the mountain stands the true source of light, the radiance of the Son of Man. What did the disciples see in that moment that forced them to their knees in terror? The lawgiver and the prophet stand in the blaze, their own glory reflected from the one who outshines them both. Yet it is not Moses or Elijah who terrify them. It is Jesus himself. The man they have walked beside on dusty roads, the one who slept in their boats and broke bread in their hands, now erupts with light that blinds them beyond endurance. His face shines like the sun in full strength. His garments gleam whiter than any fuller could bleach. The radiance is not borrowed, as Moses was on Sinai. It is not descending fire, as Elijah called at Carmel. It bursts from within him, unveiling what he has always been. The vision crashes upon them like a wave. Daniel once saw this figure, the Son of Man, coming on clouds with dominion and glory and a kingdom that would never pass away. John will later fall at his feet on Patmos when he sees him again in Revelation, eyes like fire, face blazing like the sun. But here, on this mountain, that glory arrives without warning. 3 fishermen find themselves witnesses to eternity unveiled. Do they comprehend that they are beholding the pre-incarnate Word now robed in flesh, the radiance of God's own essence shining through human frame? The air thickens with awe and dread. The stars themselves seem to recede, outshone by the brightness before them. Every story they know strains toward this moment. The burning bush, the pillar of fire, the throne glimpsed by Isaiah, the river of fire flowing before the Ancient of Days, all shadows pointing to this single blaze of unveiled deity. Could this be why the Gospel accounts are so brief? Why they record only the barest description? How could words capture what human eyes were never meant to see? Perhaps this is why the early church guarded the memory with silence, fearful of cheapening what only 3 men had endured. In this radiance, heaven and earth converge. The covenant of stone and the voice of the prophets bow in reverence. Moses is longing to see God fulfilled. Elijah's fiery zeal tempered in worship. And at the center stands Jesus, not merely teacher or miracle worker, but unveiled glory, the image of the invisible God. What thoughts course through his mind in this moment? He knows the road from this mountain leads straight to Golgotha. He knows this glimpse of glory will have to sustain his disciples through scandal, denial, and fear. Perhaps he hopes this vision will anchor them when they see his face bloodied and marred, when light itself seems extinguished on the cross. Peter stammers, desperate to break the silence. "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." His words are frantic, incoherent. He wants to contain the moment, to freeze the glory in tents like a feast of tabernacles. But the vision is not meant to be contained. This is not a retreat into safety. This is revelation meant to send them forward into suffering with eyes newly opened. Even as Peter speaks, a cloud begins to gather, luminous and heavy, descending upon the mountain. It is the Shekinah, the glory cloud that once filled the tabernacle and temple, now enfolding them in living light. The disciples fall face down, overwhelmed. Their hearts pound with the memory of Sinai, of priests unable to stand when the glory filled the sanctuary. They know what is coming. The voice that once shook mountains is about to speak again, not to confirm law or prophecy, but to direct all attention to the one standing between them. Every heartbeat holds eternity. Every breath feels stolen. We strain with them, listening for the voice that will pierce the silence. And when it comes, it will not only affirm who Jesus is, it will command a response that no listener, then or now, can ignore. The mountain holds its breath, the radiance hangs suspended. Then the cloud descends, thick and luminous, and heaven prepares to speak. Why did the voice speak only here? And why command them to listen to him above all others? The mountain that moments ago blazed with light now groans under a new weight, a cloud rolling in luminous and heavy until even the stars vanish. It is no ordinary mist. This is the same presence that once descended upon Sinai in thunder and fire, the same glory that filled Solomon's temple until priests could not stand. The air thickens, charged and trembling. The disciples cling to the ground, faces pressed into rock as the brightness consumes their senses. The voices of Moses and Elijah fall silent. Even the wind stops. All that remains is anticipation, dreadful and holy, as heaven itself inhales before speaking. Then the voice comes. Not the whisper Elijah once heard on Horeb, not the thundering law Moses heard on Sinai, but a voice that carries both fire and tenderness, shaking the mountain yet piercing straight to the heart. This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. The words echo through stone and bone, reverberating in the disciples' very souls. It is more than affirmation. It is coronation. The law and the prophets stand beside him, but the command is not to listen to them. The command is to listen to him. Do we grasp the shift that takes place here? For centuries, Israel's life has revolved around the words of Moses and the warnings of the prophets. Every synagogue reading, every feast, every law has been anchored in their authority. Yet here, in this hidden summit, heaven itself declares a new center. Authority does not vanish, but converges, fulfilled and surpassed in Christ. The disciples may not yet comprehend it, but the entire covenant is being realigned in this moment. The trembling intensifies. Peter, James, and John dare not raise their heads. Their bodies convulse with awe and terror. The cloud engulfs them completely. The voice is not loud, yet it fills every space. Could this be why the accounts of this moment are so brief? Perhaps words cannot hold what hearts can barely survive. Perhaps early scribes feared the implications of a command that so decisively shifted loyalty from Torah and prophets to a single man who called himself Son of Man. Perhaps this is why fragments of this proclamation survive only here, while whispers of fuller revelations lie buried in the smoke-stained margins of forbidden scrolls. The silence that follows is almost unbearable. In that silence, hearts pound. Minds reel. If the voice is true, if Jesus is indeed the beloved Son, then everything changes. Every sacrifice, every ritual, every expectation bends toward him. This is no longer about awaiting Messiah. Messiah has been unveiled. The kingdom is no longer future only. It has broken through in blinding light. The cloud begins to lift, slowly at first, like curtains parting after an unspoken decree. The light dims, but does not vanish. Moses and Elijah are gone. Only Jesus remains, still radiant, but clothed now in familiar flesh. The disciples shudder, their breaths ragged, tears streaking dust on their faces. They have heard heaven itself and survived. Yet survival is not the same as understanding. What they have seen will haunt them, strengthen them, and break them in the days to come. But even now the mystery deepens, for as they rise and descend the mountain, Jesus will command them to silence. No word until after the resurrection. Why forbid this testimony? Why hide the clearest revelation of his identity? Perhaps because the world was not ready. Perhaps because even his closest followers could not yet bear the weight of what they had seen. The question lingers like smoke over the mountain. What truth was so dangerous it had to be sealed until blood was spilled and stone rolled away? The voice falls silent, but its weight remains. As they stumble down the mountain, the blaze behind them fades, leaving only questions and the heavy command to keep what they saw unspoken. Why seal this vision until after resurrection? What did they see that could not be spoken aloud? The cloud has lifted, the mountain has fallen silent, and yet the 3 disciples still tremble as though the voice still reverberates in their bones. The brilliance has faded, but the memory lingers, seared into their minds more deeply than any miracle they have yet witnessed. They rise slowly, eyes lowered, too afraid to meet the gaze of the one who now walks ahead of them. Jesus looks unchanged to outward sight, his clothes once again dusty from the climb, his face weathered by sun and wind, yet they know nothing will ever appear ordinary again. As they descend the stony path, the night air grows heavy with unspoken questions. Peter opens his mouth once, then closes it, unable to shape the words. James glances at John, searching for some confirmation that this was real and not a fevered dream. Their silence is not only awe but fear, for how can they speak of what defies language? How can they describe glory beyond Sinai, a voice that shook their souls, and the presence of Moses and Elijah standing alive beside their master? Then Jesus speaks, and his words deepen the mystery. Tell the vision to no one, until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. The command falls like stone into still water, sending ripples of confusion through their hearts. Why silence? Why conceal the clearest revelation of his identity? If this vision proves him Messiah, why forbid them from proclaiming it? The unspoken answer chills them. The world is not ready. The cross must come first. Resurrection must crown it. To reveal this glory now would be to invite chaos, misunderstanding, and premature revolt. The kingdom cannot be forced by visions of light. It must be won through blood. But even as they keep silence, their minds churn with forbidden questions. Had they truly seen Moses, buried by God himself? Had they truly seen Elijah, swept into heaven in fiery chariot? If so, what else might be true? What else has been hidden from them, from all of us, by prophets and scribes guarding mysteries too volatile to release? The very command to silence feels like a seal placed on sacred scrolls, waiting for the appointed time when the world can bear their opening. As they descend further, the disciples dare to ask one question. Why do the scribes say that Elijah must come first? They are trying to reconcile what they have seen with what they have been taught. If Elijah has come, then where is the day of the Lord? If glory has appeared, why is the world unchanged below? Jesus answers softly, speaking of John the Baptist as Elijah come already, unrecognized and killed. The implication is unsettling. If John, the forerunner, suffered, what awaits the one he prepared the way for? The vision of light now casts a darker shadow. The mountain grows distant behind them, its peak swallowed in cloud and night. The world below is unchanged, unaware of the council just held above its valleys. Roman patrols still march the roads. Priests still chant in the temple. Farmers still labour under oppressive taxes. Yet above all this, 3 men carry a secret that will burn in them for the rest of their lives. A secret they cannot speak. A secret that will only make sense when another mountain rises in view, this one crowned with a cross. And what of us? We read their brief testimony, a handful of verses, and feel the weight of what is missing. What did they see that words could not hold? What did they hear in the silence between the recorded lines? Are there fragments of this vision hidden still, tucked in forgotten apocryphal writings, cut from the record by trembling hands? And why does this silence still matter for us? Centuries later, waiting at the foot of our own mountains, straining to glimpse the kingdom that has not yet fully come. The descent ends, but the story does not. For as the dust of the mountain settles from their sandals, the meaning of what they witnessed will haunt them, prepare them, and ignite them in ways they cannot yet imagine. The convergence of law and prophets in Christ has been revealed to them alone, but soon the world itself will stand at the edge of the same mystery. The final meaning of the vision waits, veiled, until the fullness of time. Yet even in silence, the meaning begins to unfold. For why these 2 figures, why this mountain, why this blaze? Only in their convergence does the hidden coronation reveal itself. Was this mountain a coronation, a heavenly council disguised as vision, hidden from empires yet decisive for history? In the silence that follows, as Moses and Elijah vanish and only Jesus remains, the meaning of what unfolded begins to press upon us. The law and the prophets, once distinct voices across centuries, now converge upon one figure. Moses embodies the covenant of stone, the commands that bound Israel to holiness. Elijah embodies the fiery call to repentance, the prophetic voice that thundered against kings and idols. Together, they span the entire story of God's dealings with his people. And now, standing beside Jesus in unveiled glory, both bow to him, their witness complete. This is no ordinary vision. It is a cosmic alignment. Every promise and prophecy, every festival and sacrifice, every psalm and oracle finds its fulfillment in this single moment. The mountain becomes the axis where heaven and earth meet, where time itself folds inward. Sinai's fire and Carmel's storm bow to a light greater than both. The disciples may not yet grasp it, but the convergence is unmistakable. Jesus does not abolish the law or the prophets. He fulfills them, embodying their deepest meaning, bringing them to their intended completion. What Israel longed for, what the nations never imagined, stands before them in human flesh, blazing with divine glory. But if this is coronation, it is a coronation in secret. No trumpets sound in Jerusalem. No heralds announce his enthronement. Rome remains unaware. The priests in the temple chant their liturgies, oblivious to the true high priest standing on a lonely mountain far to the north. Could this be why the Gospels speak so sparingly? Could this be why, later, councils softened the apocalyptic weight of this vision, fearful of declaring openly that a heavenly council had met and placed all authority into the hands of one man? The silence of history is as revealing as the words preserved. Something monumental occurred here, hidden from the powers that ruled the earth. The symbolism deepens when we consider the word Luke records. They spoke of his exodus. The first exodus freed Israel from Egypt through blood and water. This second exodus will free humanity itself through the blood of the cross and the waters of resurrection. Moses, who once led slaves out of bondage, now stands beside the one who will lead creation out of death. Elijah, who once called down fire to judge false worship, now stands beside the one whose fire will purify hearts, not consume them. The old and the new clasp, hands in the blaze of glory. For those with eyes to see, the mountain is also preview, a glimpse of the kingdom's coming brightness, a foretaste of resurrection glory that will blaze forth in fullness when he returns. The Transfiguration does not only look back to law and prophets, it looks forward to Revelation's vision of the Lamb on the throne, his face like the sun, his voice like many waters, his people clothed in white. What the disciples saw in miniature, the faithful will one day see in fullness. Do we believe this, or has our imagination been dulled by centuries of softened retellings? Even now the pattern repeats. Prophets rise and are ignored. Law is recited but misunderstood. Glory is glimpsed and then forgotten. We read this account in a handful of verses and pass over it quickly, forgetting that this moment is the pivot of the Gospels. From this mountain Jesus descends, not to more parables and miracles, but to the road that leads directly to the cross. Glory and suffering are inseparably joined. Could this be the true scandal that made scribes cautious and disciples silent? That the unveiled Son of God would soon hang bloodied and mocked, his radiance hidden behind thorns? The mountain lingers in memory, waiting. Its echoes resound in Revelation's thunder, in Paul's longing to see Christ face to face, in John's trembling before the glorified Son. And now the question turns toward us. If the law and prophets bowed to him there, will we bow to him here? If heaven declared him beloved and commanded us to listen, have we obeyed? Or do we still strain after lesser voices, clinging to fragments, while ignoring the fulfillment standing before us. We stand, even now, on the same threshold. The mountain may have faded into history, but its glory has not dimmed. The voice still speaks through the pages of Scripture, through the witness of those who saw and lived, through the Spirit that still calls us upward. The Council of Heaven has already convened. The coronation has already taken place. The only question that remains is whether we will live as though it has. What will we do with this knowledge? The vision on the mountain is no distant legend, no ornamental miracle to admire from safe distance. It is revelation, a glimpse behind the veil of history into a council that decided everything. Law and prophets bowed to Christ. Heaven itself bore witness. The Father's voice declared him beloved and commanded all to listen. And yet the world below remained unchanged, still under Roman banners, still blind to the radiance that blazed above their valleys. That blindness endures even now. We recite the story, we build cathedrals and paintings, but do we feel the terror and awe that seized Peter, James, and John? Do we understand that this was not only a vision of glory, but a summons to obedience? Moses vanished back into mystery. Elijah returned to his hidden watch. Only Jesus remained, walking down the slope toward the cross. The mountain's blaze faded into dust and silence, and the three witnesses carried a secret they could not speak. Not until blood was spilled and the stone rolled away would the time come to tell it. What truths were left untold even then? What fragments remain hidden in vaults, cut from the record by trembling hands unwilling to unleash their full weight? This was not merely transfiguration. It was enthronement in secret. A coronation unseen by kings and empires, yet decisive for all creation. From that moment, authority shifted forever. The law had spoken. The prophets had thundered. Now the voice of the Father commands one thing. Listen to him. We are left standing where they stood, at the edge of glory and dread. The mountain rises still in the pages of Scripture, calling us upward. The voice still echoes, quiet but unyielding, cutting through centuries of silence. And the question remains as piercing now as it was then. Will we listen or turn away? For the Council of Heaven has already spoken. The coronation has already come. The next time the voice thunders, it will not be in secret. It will not be confined to one mountain or three trembling witnesses. It will be the unveiling of the kingdom itself. And when that day arrives, will we be ready to stand in the blaze, or will we shrink back into shadow? If this journey stirred something in you, do not let it vanish in the noise. There are more whispers hidden in Scripture's pages, waiting to be uncovered. Stay with us. Subscribe, listen closer, and keep walking this narrow road between thunder and silence. I look forward to seeing you again.